What's going on? It's Mr. Billy. It's loud as hell in here, but you should be listening to Card Subject to Change.
Welcome back to the show.
Welcome back to the show. You know, the custody. God, I can't believe we're saying this. I mean, what do you drop that suitcase with as a big chicken nugget? If you want to go ahead and make it right for Dominic, since he likes chicken nuggets or whatever. He has got to be the most
briefcase full of chicken fingers.
Yeah, there you go.
And then that's when I found ECW, and RVD changed my life. I actually saw a clip of the Van Terminator, and I remember the hype going into, I think it was like 2000. I remember the hype going into a heat wave that RVD created this new move, and it did not disappoint. It was amazing. and the Van Terminator alone was the reason why I actually pursued professional wrestling.
Just, it blows my mind. And I'm like tugging on my mom's pants and stuff. And I'm like, Mom. And she's like, yeah, what? And I go, I want to do that. And I'm like pointing at the TV. Well, she looks and she goes, oh, you want to be like Macho Man and wear the cool sunglasses and say, oh, yeah, and do the elbow drop? And I go, no, I want to be the guy throwing snakes at people.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I don't want to go through a table.
No, and we appreciate Low Pies Pizza and Durham Remodeling and Ryan Allison Tattoo and Jared Zook. You can protect all of us anytime, baby. Country Financial for the win.
And now, your hosts of the Card Subject to Change podcast, the for frequency's sake tag team champions of the world, the wWizard CZ, and never wrong, Nick Bull.
What up, everyone? Welcome to another exciting edition of the Card Subject to Change podcast, the podcast by the fan for the fan. We hope you are enjoying your Labor Day weekend. Beautiful weather we're blessed with here as we currently record on this Saturday afternoon, fresh off a WWE show in Berlin. That's the name of the show today, an afternoon in Berlin, episode 146. Welcome to the show. I am your host, Never Wrong, Nick Bull. Joining me as always, we're in the same room today. We can almost reach out and touch each other. We're in the same room today.
Don't adjust your sets. We are broadcasting live from the beautiful Highview Lounge, and it is a gorgeous day to be outside broadcasting. The sun is shining, the sky is clear, and it was a good night in Berlin for those boys who were overseas to entertain us, I'd say. Wouldn't you say, Nick?
Absolutely. If you're a professional wrestling fan, much like we are, we're glad you're here. That's why we're here. Either company, the big companies, WWE, AEW, they've been on fire. Both companies right now putting out some great shows. WWE's been on a hit all year. Their pay-per-views just they've seemed to capture lightning in the bottle. This magic formula they have of 5 or 6 matches, shows around 3 hours, not overstimulating us, I guess, not overdoing it, but just giving us enough. And it's been a great recipe so far, and they delivered today again in Berlin. Great crowd, not as good as that crowd from France, but they tried. They were doing their thing the whole time, and it's good when a crowd's into it. Another solid show overseas. I know some people, pro wrestling fans here in the States, don't like these overseas shows. Personally, CZ, I love them. I love this afternoon wrestling. You got the rest of your day. You're not dreading work
Right.
on Monday morning if they're on a Sunday. I love these Saturday afternoon matinee pay-per-views. They're great. I hope they continue to do them, and that's the case when they do these overseas shows, whether they're in Berlin, France, or Saudi. They're doing these afternoon hits for us because they're on the other side of the world, and I love it. I love this afternoon wrestling.
Absolutely. And, of course, thank you for joining us on a special date and time for Card Subject to Change. If you're watching, we appreciate that. We're normally on Sundays, but due to prior obligations, we are not reviewing No Mercy for NXT, and have opted to just go today, right after Bash in Berlin, so we can enjoy the rest of our Labor Day weekend, which I'm not upset about.
No, not at all. NXT will be a good show, and I'm sure if something major happens on that, we'll touch on it on this show in some capacity, whether it's here or whether it's on the upcoming broadcast of the Kickout, which will be coming to you this week. More on that later, but I think we should talk about Bash in Berlin. And I'm going to go ahead and start with the main event because it's fresh on our mind. It's the last thing we just seen. The world heavyweight champion, of course, Gunther, coming almost home. He's from Austria, but Berlin's as close they're going to get for a show for him. So this was his home away from home show, taking on the Viper, the Apex Predator, Randy Orton. Randy Orton going for his 15th world championship. He's at 14 right now. This match is what I would call a slow burn.
Yeah.
It's good. It's and I mean it in a good way. They really told the story of Gunther's injured shoulder. There weren't as many chops. Gunther, to me, added a dimension to himself today by having to win in other ways besides chopping and using that arm. Randy Orton keyed on it a few times, really seized the opportunity, taking that chop arm away from Gunther. I thought they told an excellent story. It just shows. I look back on this stuff. I've been watching some past documentaries, most namely recently the Ruthless Aggression documentary, and just how far Randy Orton has come in his career.
Oh, absolutely.
How much he's matured as a person. How good he's gotten in that ring. I mean, he's the best of the best in the WWE. Threw Gunther into the mix, have it in Berlin, and those guys gave us a classic. They told us a story and hit a home run. Well, I mean, I know you were loving that match as much as I was.
I was mesmerized. That match had everything you could want and more. Brilliant storytelling throughout.
Yep.
Very much a passing of the torch moment.
I felt that afterwards with the handshake. We don't see that from Gunther very much.
No.
Gunther being able to extend the arm, give Orton some respect. Hey, you beat the crap out of me today, but I got you, type of deal. So
right.
It wasn't the passing of the torch.
And that was a very nice moment. The handshake and just the overall atmosphere of the match itself, and the crowd chanting for both people. It was very split, which surprised
me too.
You thought you would think in Berlin this would have been a very hostile crowd towards Randy Orton. I don't mean that in a negative way.
Right.
I mean, you would think that it would have been a favored Gunther match.
For sure. I thought the crowd would have been more one-sidedly to Gunther, but they definitely some Randy Orton loyalists in the crowd. That's not a bad thing. The crowd was into it. Warring chants going back and forth. I think both guys had their support here, and I'm going to tell you, like, I really just soak this up. Anybody who watches the show, anybody who knows me knows I'm a Gunther fan, so I'm going to go gaga over anything he does. But I think they added a dimension to him as a wrestler today. Wrestling injured, we haven't seen him really get the crap kicked out of him like Randy Orton did today. 3 times onto a table without a breaking. The 4th coming from steps, being above the table, drop down onto it. Randy Orton unleashed some punishment on Gunther. Gunther stepped up and accepted it, thrived in the role, and an injured Gunther, nursing that right shoulder, unable to chop, unable to hit as hard as he normally does, using that left leg, using the submission moves a little more. He won it with a sleeper like he did with Damian Priest at SummerSlam. But I really think this match is just like 2 of the greats of their eras.
Yes.
Meeting up, like you said, the passing of the torch. And that's kind of how it was presented, in my opinion. Is I look up at the monitor here in the studio, and we still have the Bash at Berlin presser on. But, the way he's portrayed, the way they presented it afterwards, like, this is the man for years to come, and we've known that, and now, like, it's being spoken into fruition. I think it's a long time before he relinquishes that title, CZ.
And you've got to look at his previous title reigns. They mentioned it on commentary. The NXT UK Championship, over 800 days. I don't remember the exact number off the top of my head. The Intercontinental Championship, 666 days.
Yep.
How long does he hold the World Heavyweight Championship? And quite frankly, who can beat him?
I think right now, I think right now he's poised for a long run. There's nothing there to show you otherwise. He hasn't grown cold. He hasn't fizzled out. Fans on either side, whether you're rooting for him or rooting against him, are interested in his matches. They want to see his level of punishment he's going to hand out. I think the only thing that could stop him right now, knock on wood, as I sit here at the studio table, is an injury.
I think you're right.
Hasn't had that major injury yet. Let's hope he doesn't. He's in the start of a great run here. He got done with that great IC run at WrestleMania when he dropped the title to Sami Zayn after 666 days. But right now, he is on the rise, the cusp of greatness, kind of leading this new era of wrestling we have. I guess they call it the Renaissance era, but he's really the focal point of that Renaissance era, if you ask me. Some people might say Cody Rhodes over on SmackDown and doing his thing, and we'll talk about Cody Rhodes here in a little bit. But with this pay-per-view being in Berlin, with Gunther being the World Heavyweight Champion, with it being the main event against Randy Orton, with it being the match that it was, I think we got to give credit where credit is due. That WWE did a great service to us here by giving us this match. It delivered, and they had a great way to get back into it after the King of Ring and Randy Orton's shoulder was up. So they had a great end to it. They took us on a ride. The match in Berlin today was special, and I think when people look back on Gunther's reign, they're going to point to this moment in him gut-checking himself, toughing it out, and able to get over on Orton in Berlin.
Now, before we get off of this match, I want to name a couple of names. You talked about building stars.
Yep.
We're not there yet with these two people I'm going to mention. There are two people that I can see that could potentially take the title off of Gunther when they're ready. They're currently sitting in the Intercontinental picture. I think you know who I'm going to say.
And I'm going to add a name after you add it.
I'm going to say Braun Breaker.
Okay.
And I'm going to say Ilya Dragunov.
Okay.
Those are the two names that I see because they have both given Gunther a run for money in NXT or NXT UK. They take your pick.
Mm-hmm.
They have both put on tremendous matches with him.
Yes.
And when they are ready to bump up to that next level, which is going to be sooner than later, but not quite yet. Look out.
Another name I think you need to throw into there, and it's a slow burn down the road, is a Ludwig Kaiser.
Okay.
Ludwig Kaiser's coming along into his own right now. He's starting to get showcased a little bit. He did the ring introduction for Gunther today. At some point, Imperium is going to break up down the road, in my opinion. And I'm not saying Kaiser's going to beat him, but those are going to be some interesting matches between those two. Those two know each other. They're good friends. They've risen through the ranks together. But I wanted to throw that name in with your two names. Good suggestions of Braun Breaker and of Ilya Dragunov, to take that title off Gunther in the future. As we babble here, you're listening to the Card Subject to Change podcast, the podcast by the fan for the fan. We are powered by Low Pies Pizza, built by Durham Remodeling, colored by Ryan Allison Tattoo, protected by Jared Zook of Country Financial. Thank you so much. We're glad that you're a part of this, and we're glad that you're here watching us. We're here talking about Bash in Berlin, an afternoon in Berlin, these afternoon, Saturday afternoon matinees. We're just remarking here about the Randy Orton-Gunther match, talking about how much we loved it. Anything more you want to add to this match before we continue on with other parts of the show?
I really think we've said it all.
Okay.
Just a great match, and I think it's one that I look forward to go back and rewatching at some point.
Right. God, I love Gunther. I love him, man. I love him. I can't say it enough on this show, and he really showed me today why he's probably my favorite wrestler to watch right now. Just what a performance he put on, and I can't wait to see what's next. I don't know where you want to go next match-wise.
Well, let's go from what was probably the best match on the card to, and I'm going to say this, like, what was probably the worst match, in my opinion, on the card.
Okay.
And it wasn't a bad match. Talking about the women's tag match. All in all, it was an interesting dynamic. I'm not a big fan of Alpha Fire, but I am a fan of Isla Dawn. I think together they kind of complement each other and bring something good to the table. It's a tag team champion for a reason. But there were shenanigans involved that led them to getting those titles.
Correct.
This match didn't have those shenanigans as much, if at all, to give Bianca and Jade the title back.
Yeah, Alba Fire, Isla Dawn won the belts in a 3-way tag without taking the winning fall over either Bianca Belair or Jade Cargill. So Jade Cargill and Bianca had their right to a rematch, I guess. They get the rematch here at Bash in Berlin. And this match is kind of what I expected it to be. WWE still kind of have the tight reins on Jade Cargill. They're still, I guess, handling her with kid gloves, bringing her along the way they want to bring her along, and having Bianca work most of the match. Get Jade in there for the hot tag, the power moves, the double team moves. And they had they have some chemistry together, some cohesion in the ring. They got some good double team moves that they do. And I just felt from the get-go like there was no way they were going to lose this match.
Right.
And that's because I think the eventual thing here with Bianca and Jade, all's happy now in their camp. They're the new women's tag champs. But this is going to be a feud down the road. This might be your feud at WrestleMania. So in order to get to there, and I know it seems so far away right now, but it's not. It's not. WrestleMania will be here before we know it. Jade and Bianca need to win these tag belts, have some success, help each other out, earn that trust back, and then slowly but surely there's going to become dents in that armor, and you're going to see that these guys maybe aren't as strong as they portray themselves as a team, and I think it's going to lead to a one-on-one feud with Bianca and Jade. Can they hold off to WrestleMania? I think so, and this was a step in that direction. Get them back as the tag champs, get them back some fluency, get them some wins, get them on a run, and then you can start planting the seeds for that eventual feud that I think is going to take place, and I think it'll take place at WrestleMania.
I agree. I completely agree, and I think in my head, anyway, the way that I would book it is you would have them keep the tag titles until Royal Rumble.
Mm-hmm.
Some way, shape, or form, one of them inadvertently costs them the match, and that's when the tension starts. And then you've got that build to WrestleMania for two of them facing each other.
Mm-hmm. I like that. I would love for the Women's Rumble to start the show. Something happens in between in that Rumble. Some miscommunication with those two. Maybe Jade eliminates Bianca. And then later that night, they got to defend the tag belts. And boom, then the fireworks start. That'd be how I would book it. That's fantasy, like how I'd like to see it. Is a mistake happens in the Rumble later that night, or maybe the next night, or a couple nights later on Raw, they defend the belts, and then the tension starts, and then boom, we're on our way to WrestleMania. But I'll tell you this match was probably the one of the 5 on the card that I wasn't looking that forward to, because I thought it was such a foregone conclusion they were going to get the belts back. It's no diss to Fire. It's no diss to Isla Dawn. They had a decent little run since winning the belts at SummerSlam. Correct? They won the belts at SummerSlam? Yes, they did. No.
Right around that time.
It was around that time. It was around that time. It wasn't on SummerSlam.
No, it was. I think it was on SmackDown.
Okay, it was. It was. But nice little run. But the tag belts are back where they're supposed to be right now. And I think it's an eventual feud, and we're gonna see that. I'll stand by that. I think that's gonna be a match at WrestleMania. But they got to stay together now before they can rip apart violently, and it's gonna be beautiful when it happens.
And I'll transition with that. We're talking about a feud that has some longevity to WrestleMania,
Mm-hmm.
and you can disagree with me if you want. I don't care.
Okay.
A feud that I don't think has the longevity to last until WrestleMania, I think it's going to wrap up here probably at Survivor Series, is the Liv and Rhea and the Judgment Day.
Okay.
I think Liv and Rhea will end their rivalry with Rhea getting the belt back. I would say at Survivor Series or right around Survivor Series. I just don't think they have enough story to go.
So what right now, we just got done with Bash in Berlin. Next, we have Bad Blood.
Next is Bad Blood.
And then is Survivor Series after that.
Crown Jewel.
Crown Jewel. Wow. That's a good question. I don't know if it can get to Survivor Series. I just don't know how much more Damian and Rhea are going to be able.
And here's the thing.
I guess we haven't had the blow off with Damian and Finn.
That's
right.
That part has the longevity.
Correct.
Finn and Priest can go the distance.
They haven't had their match yet since Finn cost Damian the belt at SummerSlam.
No,
So he hasn't had that moment of redemption yet.
And that I can see continuing on a little bit longer. But Liv and Rhea do not have that same chemistry and that same dynamic where I think the feud can stretch out all the way to WrestleMania. Now, I don't know that Priest and Finn have that kind of longevity either, but they've got a little more on the shelf than they've got a little more shelf life than what I think the title has.
Yeah, I can see that. I won't go against that. What I thought coming in, this mixed tag match between Dom and Liv, Rhea and Damian, was the match to me on this card that overseeded my expectations. It was a better match than I thought it was going to be.
I can agree with that.
Totally expected Dom to get his butt kicked in this match. Totally expected Liv to get her butt kicked. I thought somehow, some way they'd pull out a sneak win. But I think the right move was made here for Rhea and Damian Priest to win, get some momentum. You say Survivor Series. I think Rhea and Liv is over before that. I do. But maybe it's not over until Damian and Finn Balor's over.
I can see
you
that.
You got to think Rhea is going to be on helping Damian out whenever he's taking on Finn Balor, because there's going to be all the cronies from Judgment Day interfering. So I think it's a package deal. That's what I'll present to you. I think it's a package deal. Like Rhea and Liv will go on as long as Damian and Finn go on.
Let me ask you this then.
I don't know if I want it to, but that's kind of the way I see it going.
And I don't know that I can disagree with that. I'm not a pundit by any means. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm not booking for the WWE.
You're not?
Let me ask you this. Do Finn and Damian have enough in the tank to carry Liv and Rhea?
By themselves, no, but I think with all the characters attached, yes.
Okay, I can concede that.
I don't know. Like, God, Survivor Series right now seems so far away. You know, Thanksgiving seems so far away right now when you got two shows in between. A lot can happen, yes. I just don't. Are we in agreement here that Rhea is the one to get the belt back off Liv?
Yes.
Okay, you don't see anybody else taking that off Liv. Rhea will win this feud, get her comeuppance, get her belt back. You think it ends at Survivor Series. I think it's going to end before that. But then again, it's always, you got the Damian and Finn Balor factor too. So I don't know. It really is up in the air when you think about it.
I'll even throw this out, and this is not to downplay Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley's abilities in the ring or to tell a story. This particular feud needs the title to stay fresh.
Yes.
I don't say that about a lot of rivalries and a lot of feuds and a lot of storylines. This particular one, the belt is what holds it together, in my opinion.
Correct. And a feud like Drew and CM Punk doesn't need the title.
Right.
Because they're both good enough talkers on the mic. There's enough hate there. Yeah, I could agree with that. I'm going to tell you one thing I wanted to say to you during the show, but I saved it for this show. I would have loved to see Raw Tag Team Champions Finn Balor and JD McDonough defend the belts on this show. Not as bad as the Young Bucks. They've only defended the belts once since winning them, Balor and McDonough. I like their mix of a tag team. I like those guys working together. I wish they would have been defending the belts on this show, but once again, we go back to that 5-match formula that Triple H and WWE have fallen in love with, and it seems to be working. But I wanted to say during that Judgment Day match, when those guys were interluding themselves into the match, I'm like, man, I wish these guys were defending the belts.
And I don't disagree. I would say that about both sides,
Absolutely.
SmackDown and Raw Tag Team Championships. I know you're a big tag team guy. I'm not as big of a tag team guy as you are, but there are some tag teams that I gravitate towards. I think I'm not going to name any offhand, but you guys can, if you follow us. know at least one that you can name for me.
DIY.
But no, I wish the tag titles had played more of a presence. The reason they didn't for so long was because he who shall not be named was not a big tag team guy. Triple H is a tag team guy. He loves tag teams. Look at what he did with, as you say, DIY and the then known as the Revival.
Right.
And that's just one example.
Yeah. I'd like to see him. I hope at the next pay-per-view, either the Raw or SmackDown tag belts are defended. I think maybe SmackDown has their light shine bright on Friday nights of these Saturday shows. They kind of load those Friday night shows the night before. The people that aren't going to be on it, they get showcased, and then Saturday the Raw guys are kind of left out in the dark. But that remains to be seen between now and the next show. If the WWE tag titles will be on the show, I hope they will be. I hope they'll be defended.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. We hope so here at the Card Subject to Change podcast.
Let's take a little time.
You
out.
want to take a break?
Yeah, we got a
Labor Day
at some
weekend.
point.
We're not in a rush here. We're going to take a break here. On the other side, of course, you can expect another. That's right, moment of focus from our friend
And
JT.
we'll talk a little
Energy.
bit more about that in depth when we get back.
For sure.
Got some words to say to well, pretty much everybody out there, but let's take a time out and pay some dues to the other shows on the network and, of course, our great sponsors.
For frequency's sake, has you covered on all things sports. From the squared circle to the hardwood and the gridiron to the speedway, we've got something for everyone. Walk down the aisle with the boys from Card Subject to Change every Sunday as they take a deep dive into everything pro wrestling. Head on over to the hardwood with Doug Green and Watching the W each week for all the news from the WNBA. Want more insight from Pit Row? Check out the Green, White, and Checkered podcast where they give their insight on everything happening on and off the track. Need your gambling fix? We've got you there. Dan Hancock and Gotham Gambling will help you cover the spread with the Golden Ticket Show. Football more your style? Explore the waters of NFL DFS with DFS Deep Dive with Brian Craighead and Jordan Kernan each week. More into the science portion of the game? The Professor John Bush and Dennis Michelson take you into their science lab and dissect your week in the data lab. Need to know who to start last minute? The network's flagship show, For Fantasy's Sake, is here in a pinch. The fellows come to you live every football Sunday from 10 to 11:30 Central with the week's best DFS, gambling, and lineup advice. And wrap up your Sundays with Joe Winkle and Nick Brinks as they come to you live with educated ignorance looking at all the day's action. Not enough football on Sunday? Not a problem. Kick your feet up at lunch on Monday and slip into the football lounge with Mark and Dan while they look at the week that was in news, notes, and more. For frequency's sake, you know what we mean.
Welcome back to the show.
Welcome back. We're glad you're here. Episode 146 of An Afternoon in Berlin on the Card Subject to Change podcast, the podcast by the fan for the fan. I'm your host, never wrong, Nick Bull. Joining me is my tag team partner, the co-champ of the For Frequency's Sake Network, the Wizard CZ. And Wiz, you wanted to talk about something here real quick before we continued on with the show.
I do. I want to shout out our great sponsors first. We are, of course, powered by Lopez Pizza, built by Durham Remodeling, colored by Ryan Allison Tattoo, and protected by Jared Zook of Country Financial.
Mm-hmm.
But we are also part of the For Frequency's Sake podcast network and the flagship show, For Fantasy's Sake, for all your fantasy football needs. Comes back tomorrow in full force. They will be doing a live broadcast if you are in the Quad City area from the Milan Community Center at Camden Park, talking all things football. Want to make sure if you're in the area, stop by, say hello. Nick and I will probably be down there at some point. But yeah, they'll be kicking off the football season, which begins on Thursday. So I wanted to give them a little bit of a rub from Card Subject to Change because we know they'll be starting hot, getting ready to go into the football season.
And of course, one of the big sponsors of the network, Atomic Sports Cards and Collectibles, puts on this card show. Last year was the first year for it, and the place was packed. There was a lot of tables there, all sorts of cards, not just baseball cards, baseball, basketball, football. There's wrestling. I believe there's some Pokemon. There's all sorts. If you've got to scratch that itch and get out and look at cards, buy some cards, this is your time to do it. It's in conjunction with the Milan Fall Festival that's going on. It's at the Camden Center, this card show tomorrow. I believe it starts at 10 o'clock. I think it runs 10 to 4.
I believe so, yes.
And
The boys with For Fantasy's Sake, they'll be running 10 to 11:30.
they'll be running 10 to 11:30. Show goes from 10 to 4. If you want to get there, say hi to the guys from the For Frequency's Sake Network. They'll be front and center on the stage there as they were last year. CZ and I are going to try and make an appearance there. You never know, might sign an autograph, take a pic or two, whatever, whatever. Yeah, right. Whatever
You want to pick
floats
with
your
me? It's
boat.
$25. I'm kidding.
40 for the combo.
40 for the combo.
That's tomorrow as we record this on the Sunday of Labor Day, the card show at the Camden Center in Milan.
And back to today, though, we have our weekly moment of focus. So I'm going to hand things over to our good friend JT Energy, and we'll be back after this.
Welcome to a moment of focus with the feline phenom, JT Energy. And this week, the boys, they're covering WWE Bash in Berlin. I know you like that, Nick. And what should we focus on while you cover this event? You know what we should focus on? Looking abroad. Because the WWE, they had to take their product all the way across the world to entertain and figure out exactly what needed to happen today. But if you stay in that one place all the time, things might not change. So don't be afraid to go abroad to find what you need, to change what you need. This has been a moment of focus with the feline phenom, JT Energy.
And I want to give a huge thank you to JT Energy, not just for every week coming on doing the moment of focus, but this week in particular. We sprung Saturday on him, gave him a couple days notice, and of course he is out there living the pro wrestler life on the road, working shows, was on the road today, and didn't know if we were going to hear from him. I told him it was okay. We didn't have to. We could come back to it next week, but very much just said, okay, I'm going to give you guys a moment of focus, and here it is. So thank you, JT Energy. I want to wish you and all the boys out there a safe and exciting wrestling weekend.
Absolutely. Anytime. Love JT contributing to the show. He's always a joy to talk to at the shows. And those guys are on the road, entertaining everybody every weekend. So we're grateful for them. Gives us something to talk about. And I love that they're a part of this show as much as they are. Was he trying to be subliminal with us? Is he trying to tell us to take cards subject to change abroad?
Possibly.
Is that oh my goodness. Could you imagine?
I mean, he's already put us over in London, so.
We're going to be like Joe Hendry. We're going to have to come up with a song in all the places that we're over in, right?
Right.
I'll let you sing that one.
No.
Thanks to JT, though, for a moment of focus. If you would like to see the Card Subject to Change podcast abroad, hit us up. We'll figure something out maybe someday. Someday, maybe. Not soon. We're not going anywhere. We're right here, right now, and we're talking about Bash in Berlin, the latest premium live event from WWE. And where do you want to go to next? I'll let you pick what we talk about next. We kind of skipped all over the card so far.
We really have. What do we have left? We've got 2 matches, and
We've got the opener, which was Randy Orton and KO, and then we have the strap match between Punk and Drew. So take your pick.
okay, so that's a really tough decision to go. I think we should talk about Cody and KO.
That's fine.
The strap match is the main event.
That's fine.
That really was, other than the Gunther match, the big match of the night.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. Yeah, Cody and KO opened the show. That hot spot, that opening match. Kind of figured that would be where they would start, with Gunther being from that area, world heavyweight champion, fighting Randy Orton. That'd be the big main event. What did you think about this match opening, and your thoughts about the match?
I thought it was a good opener. Great way to start the show. Those two really kicked it off well. This match almost pissed me off. I think you know why.
I know why.
How many crossroads, Cody? How many do you need to hit to beat somebody? It was understandable to hit 3 when you were against Roman. Everybody else is not on a Roman's level. Stop it. You don't need to hit 3 in a row on your level.
I'm gonna let you all behind the curtain here for a second. CZ and I just watched the show here before we came here live. After Cody hit the second crossroads on KO, I lean back, I look over my shoulder, and there's flames coming out of CZ's eyes. He's so pissed off. And I was hoping he'd hit one more crossroads just to piss you off even more.
I'm sorry. I love Cody. I love everything he does, except for that. It makes him look weak. It makes him looks like he has to hit his finish multiple times in a match in order to win.
You're saying it looks weak when he does 3 in a row, but if he hit like 2 at separate times, it's fine.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Okay.
That's a little different.
Okay. But when he goes for the 3 in a row, you're kind of like, okay.
It's overkill.
Okay. Huh? No, I'm not. I think you feel the same way about Cody Rhodes doing 3 crossroads in a row as I do seeing a Canadian Destroyer. It drives me crazy. And I think I know there's just things in wrestling that trip your trigger, and that trips your trigger. I get it. I'll poke you and stoke the flame a little bit, but you're right. I see it. Like, if you're doing your finisher 3 times in a row, well, let me ask you this. What about Punk giving Drew McIntyre 3 or 4 go-to-sleeps?
Different.
Okay.
That feud, the reason it's different is this. First and foremost, there is an animosity level between Punk and Drew that is not there between Cody and KO.
Correct.
Second, Punk did not hit them directly in a row. I get what you're saying.
I know what you mean.
Drew McIntyre was down most of the time. Every time Punk saw him move, he would get up and hit another go to sleep.
Yep.
However, with Cody, it's just like bam, 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 all in once. And I think it takes away from his finish. I think it makes him look like he can't beat somebody without that triple crossroads, which I know he can. I've seen it before.
Right.
But with Punk and Drew, we're kind of mixing the matches up, and I'm fine with that. But CM Punk has a lot of hatred for Drew McIntyre.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't... CM Punk is not necessarily the heel, in this scenario, but because of the hatred and animosity, it made sense to me.
Okay, I can see that. I can see that. And then now let's get back to Punk. Let's get back to Drew and KO here. I thought a decent opener. I thought they did a really good job of telling the story of KO not wanting to cross the line in the match and take a cheap shot at an injured Cody. It may have cost him a couple times. They did a really good job of doing that. Finally, he took advantage of it. And Barrett's like, hey, it's a championship match. You got to do what you got to do. And I agree with that. One thing that comes to my mind during that match, and you're like, oh, save it for the show. Save it for the show. That's the booker, man, telling me to save it for the show. What's next for KO? His contract's up soon. Like, we're talking within the next less than 6 months. Is this kind of his parting gift? They know he's not going to come back. We're going to give you a world title shot with Cody Rhodes on a pay-per-view. Or is he gone? Is he going to go to AEW, where we know that he's tight with Nick and Matt Jackson, the Young Bucks, who are the EVPs of AEW? We know Kevin Owens is friends with them. Kevin Owens set Cody Rhodes up with the Young Bucks, and that's how the friendship started. I don't know. That's what I was thinking about during this. Like, what is next for Kevin Owens? They talked about it's been 7 years since he had a world championship. Like, that doesn't seem that long ago. And
But at the same time, it does.
same time it does. A lot has changed. In the last 7 years. But he got his title shot today and lost. What's next for him? Sami Zayn's on an opposite show. Okay. He had been palling around with Randy Orton. He just lost the world championship. What's next? Is he going to re-sign with WWE, or is he gone? Hit us up. Hit us up on our socials. We want to know what you guys think out there. Is KO staying with World Wrestling Entertainment, or is he going to venture out like Ricochet did, see if the grass is greener on the other side, and join All Elite Wrestling. I think that's the question I had during this match. I mean, it was I love the match. I didn't pick apart anything, but I just couldn't help but think about that whole time. What's next for KO? If he loses, what's next for him? What's he going to do? What's going to happen? I think that's where I'm at coming out of this match.
And I can agree with that. And here's my answer. In the short version, stay or go. He's lost in the shuffle in either place. I don't see him going into AEW and being in that main title picture, at least not right away. And if they don't put him in it right away, what does he do?
Right.
But if he stays in WWE, he just lost to Cody. That puts him at the back of the line, as they say, for a title shot. Cody was gracious enough to say, hey, this guy deserves it, which he did. I want him to have the next match, and that's what happened.
Right.
But where does he go in WWE? Where would you put him? Where would you put him in either company?
If I'm bringing him into All Elite Wrestling, I make him the enforcer for the Elite.
Okay, I can get behind that.
That's where I would put him at. He's friends with those guys. I think it'd be a natural fit. I think Kevin Owens, Kevin Steen, however you want to refer to him as, has been around long enough. He's a better heel than he's a face.
Yes.
He's an excellent heel. He's that. I always look at Kevin Steen, Kevin Owens, and I think of the older brother in Home Alone, Buzz. He's got that Buzz asshole look to him as a heel. And he's an excellent heel. He's a good wrestler. He can wrestle either one, but I think he's an excellent heel. If he goes to AEW, that's what I would do with him. I would make him like the enforcer to the Elite or whatever. WWE? I don't know. That's a great question. That's what I'm thinking. Like, what's next for him? Who does he feud with? I'm trying to think who is over on SmackDown. For him to feud with. Is he a part of this bloodline war when they eventually have a war?
I don't think so.
I don't think he is either.
I don't think he can follow.
I think Sami Zayn's a part of it, but I don't think Kevin Owens is a part of it.
Do you turn him heel and put him against LA Knight for the United States Championship?
I don't know. Like, it's the great unknown right now. What do you do with Kevin Owens?
Let me spin a web for you. Let me go a little bit different.
Okay, Charlotte.
What if he follows the path of, say, a Dolph Ziggler, better known as today as Nick Nemeth, and goes over to TNA? I don't think he's ever been on the TNA roster. Nick Nemeth has never been there before, and he's now their champion. But I see him fitting in the big picture. I see him being a big fish in a smaller pond by going over there and doing something he's never done. I'm not saying that's what he's going to do.
I mean, it's really going to be interesting. I understand the allure of going to AEW. The travel's much less for probably decent share of money. I don't know if he'd be getting paid more than what he would at WWE. But I also think he's built a following in the WWE where people watch his matches because they know that he's going to put on a fight. The whole fight. Keep on fighting, fight Owens, fight or whatever. It's kind of grown into it's his mantra now in WWE, and the fans are behind it. So I couldn't tell you what to do with him in WWE right now. After this match, I don't know what's next for him. I don't see a rematch with Cody.
And until you mentioned the possibility of him being the Bucks enforcer, I didn't see a path for him in AEW.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's the path that I would want him to go on either, necessarily.
Right.
But you spin it and you put him on the Indies or you put him in TNA, I can see paths for him to go. I can see like the Nick Nemeth having a rivalry with Kevin Owens for the title.
Mm-hmm.
Some fresh matches that we've never seen, some fresh faces that he's never faced. Fresh opponents, I should say.
Right.
And if it were me, I would look at that as a distinct option, just because it would give him a breath of fresh air, in my opinion. I don't think AEW has that fresh air that would satisfy him as much as going somewhere small.
I guess what it comes down to is he looking at money or is he looking at opportunity?
That's the question.
That's
right?
the question. What do you want? Right? He's getting older. He's not a spring chick. He's probably about our age.
And you hit the nail on the head. I think of listening to JR's podcast with Conrad Thompson. Cash, create. Those are the two things that it's all about.
Right.
And is he going for the cash or is he going for the create?
Right. What does he want? Does he want to control his own destiny, or does he want to have a safe? It remains to be seen. It's going to be something we'll keep an eye on here at Card Subject to Change. I think his contract's up sometime November. It's less than 6 months, and I thought November was kind of the date on that. But much more to look forward to on that. Cody retains here. Good match. Good gesture after the match. Shook hands. They hugged. KO raised Cody's arm. Cody raised KO. KO was like, nope, you won, you beat me type of deal. So all class in this at the end. Cody retains. I like to know what's next for him too.
You got to think Solo is still waiting in the
They
wings.
kind of mentioned it. They kind of mentioned that after he beat KO. Solo undoubtedly next for him. So probably more bloodline stuff, but this was a nice reprieve. No bloodline on this pay-per-view.
No.
And that's probably the first in a while. Go back and look at things, but
Very refreshing change.
I'm not going to sit here and Google on my phone right now or Wikipedia on my phone right now, but
Right.
it's something to look into. That first time in a long time we haven't had there's no bloodline on this show. Not complaining by any means.
No, I agree.
This brings us to our last match to talk about, and that was probably the second biggest match on the card. Probably the biggest grudge match going on in WWE right now, maybe all of wrestling, is CM Punk, Drew McIntyre, the strap match.
It's very heated rivalry.
Yep.
A lot of animosity here. Both players throwing heat at each other like crazy. Surprised we haven't seen some literal fireballs, but then again, none of them are a wizard like me and Chris Jericho. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist. But no,
Mark.
I told Nick this off the air. Before Punk came down on Monday Night Raw with that leather strap, back in my mind, I was thinking we haven't had a really good four-corner strap match in a long time. And I think back to some of the one that comes to my memory the strongest is JBL and Eddie Guerrero.
Mm-hmm.
And they played this the same way, except the strap was leather in JBL and Eddie Guerrero. It was a bull rope. There was a cowbell in the middle. Which makes sense because they're both Texans. That's probably why it was a bull rope.
Right.
But I thought this.
And JBL's music moves. I've been waiting to do that so long.
If you're having fun, we're having. If you can tell we're having fun, I hope you guys are having fun watching and listening after the fact. Nick, I'm going to get you a limo with horns on.
I hope so. I'd blare that theme the whole way.
But no, I thought this match type was refreshing because it's not something that we've seen for a while. Sure, we've seen dog collar matches recently. We've seen CM Punk in a dog collar match in the last 2 years.
We've seen Cody Rhodes with that Texas Bull Rope match.
Yeah.
Yep, not too long ago.
But an actual four-corner strap match where you've got to touch each corner sequentially, it was refreshing to see a match type that we don't see very often.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like new, exciting match types. I like bringing back things we don't see.
And that match type played well into this rivalry.
It did. It really did.
You needed something with a little more spice. This wasn't going to be a conventional match. You needed something. This is a grudge match. This is a picture perfect example of a feud that doesn't need a title. There's enough heat there between the two guys. The first match, Drew won. Punk had to up the ante, so to say, and get it back with this match. And doing that, the four corners bull rope match just played into the hands of this, and it was perfect. I still think there's one more match. I still think it's at the next pay-per-view. And I think we are looking at a Hell in a Cell match with these two to be the blow-off. And I think everybody wants to see it. Like, nobody's like, oh, take this, get this off TV. Nobody's complaining about this.
No.
whether you're rooting for Punk, rooting for Drew, or you're just a wrestling fan that watches wrestling, I haven't heard a bad word about this feud. Like, oh, let's wrap this up, get it over with. I think people are legit interested in this because it seems so real. These guys have done a great job of blurring the lines of real. Like, do they like each other? Do they hate each other? Like, these guys are smart, man. They're doing a great job, and they're making money, and they're telling good stories. And I think all roads lead to Bad Blood, Hell in a Cell with these two. I don't know if it'll be the only Hell in a Cell match, but I think it is why they're having Hell in a Cell. It'll be these two. And then maybe be the blow off of this feud for a while.
And I'll tell you, you brought up a great point. The fact that you don't know, that the lines are so blurred. I can make comparisons. It feels very much like the Miz Daniel Bryan feud.
Yeah.
Particularly, I mean, when they were in NXT, when they started off, that started that rivalry, and it just went on throughout their career, off and on.
Mm-hmm.
But particularly that Talking Smack episode.
Yeah.
Where the Miz is holding the title. This is my show!
You've been dying to say that, haven't you?
Yeah.
On our show.
Yeah.
This is my show. Yeah, you're right.
You don't know if it's real or if it's story.
Right.
I would love to sit down with either Daniel Bryan or the Miz, Bryan Danielson now, or the Miz, and just say, hey.
And Michael Cole.
And Michael Cole. Mm-hmm. Yes, there was Michael Cole who played a huge factor.
Yeah, Michael Cole's
in his animosity towards Daniel Bryan.
Right.
I'd love to sit down with any one of them and find out was the animosity real? Was it scripted? Was it a little of both?
The storytelling was just that good.
Yes.
And I think we're getting that and more with Drew and Punk. Tremendous job in the match today. Punk was able to win the match, touch all four corners successfully while implementing a few go-to-sleeps in between to keep Drew down. The crowd seemed to be behind Punk most of the way. They were rooting for Drew as well. Interesting stat that Michael Cole stated after Punk won. Punk's first WWE win in 10 and a half years. I mean, that's just crazy to think about.
Yes.
He was gone for such a long time. He was in AEW, but this is only his third match back. He's cut several promos. This is only his third match since arriving at Survivor Series last year. He wrestled in the Men's Rumble, and got injured. He wrestled at SummerSlam, and he wrestled today. But he was at WrestleMania doing the ring announcement thing. I mean, they've done a good job of keeping him relevant while he wasn't cleared and wasn't able to physically perform. Good to see him in a ring today. Good to see him walk away. It looked like afterwards fine, no injuries.
Right.
And as a wrestling fan, I think wrestling's better when he's involved because he draws you in, makes you care about the feud he's in. And not the biggest CM Punk fan. I'm not the biggest Drew McIntyre fan. But I am a fan of good storytelling and good feuds, and this is it. And I think we're not done. We've got one more leg left on this 3-fight tour.
Yes, I think you're right. Kind of wish that Seth Rollins hadn't gotten legitimately injured and was still a part of the storyline. I see his interjection just adding that much more fuel to the fire. And I'm not saying that just because I know where you're going.
Hold on to next month. I think he makes an appearance after maybe the Raw after Bad Blood.
Okay.
Maybe he interjects himself into one of these guys. He's the next feud for one of these guys. We'll see. Well, that's how I feel. I feel that with Rollins away, it gave the spotlight to Punk and Drew now.
Yes.
And after that Hell in a Cell, the spotlight will be on Rollins and one of these two guys as he goes. He doesn't like either one of them. He's got beef with both of them.
Right.
McIntyre took the belt off at WrestleMania. Rollins doesn't like Punk for all the stuff that Punk has done in the past. And so there's plenty of stories to tell there when Rollins comes back. But with Rollins being gone, this gives full attention to Drew and Punk.
Yes.
Yep.
And they're doing a fantastic job.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know how they're going to get to Bad Blood, but I'm looking forward to it. And I would just almost assume it's going to be a Hell in a Cell match at Bad Blood with those two.
Now, of course, our tribal chief is lighting up our comments.
Of course.
And says that it should have been a Larry on a forklift match, CM Punk's dog, or even Larry and AJ on a forklift or bust. DJ, you're fired. Go home.
How about a DJ on a forklift match?
That's when we fight.
I'll only do it if Judy Bagwell's on there with him. Could you see Judy Bagwell and Deej sitting on a forklift, like looking down on the match?
Maybe having a little picnic up there.
Or in a shark cage.
A shark cage.
Stupid.
We're done. We're off the rails.
Stupid things that you think of when you're talking about wrestling. But
Oh God.
regardless, I thought Bash in Berlin was good. I give it probably an A minus, high B plus, A minus. I thought it was a really good show. They've found something with this 5-match formula. They found something with these afternoon shows. I hope they continue them, sprinkle them in. I enjoyed it. Had a good time. With the show. Really, really liked the matches.
And I'll be honest with you, I think I told you this off the air. I was riding a solid B up until the main event. And the Gunther Randy Orton match popped that up to an A minus.
Mm-hmm.
Solid A minus in my opinion.
Those guys, that was like an old school, like I'd like to think like the old NWA heads out there would love that match.
Yes.
Hard hitting. There wasn't too much shenanigans over the top. There was some use of the stairs and the tables at ringside, but I think it was more to tell the story of the physicality that was the toll that was taken on this match. So I didn't have a problem with it. But God, I love that Gunther Randy Orton match. That's what I'm going to think of when I think of this pay-per-view. So,
and of course, props to Charles Robinson, referee of the match.
Absolutely.
Little Nate, if you will.
Does a good job. Does a real good job. He really does. So I think that's wrapped up for us here on this episode of Card Subject to Change, episode 146. We're glad you spent your afternoon with us, tuning in here and hearing us go back and forth about Bash in Berlin. We want to talk to you about our new endeavor. It's still the same show. It's Card Subject to Change, but it's going to be the Kickout. We're going to put a little time limit on a little short form media for you guys. Try to put out something weekly on top of this show. And it's going to be more of a discussion where we're each going to bring a topic, spat it out, and then we'll go from there. It's kind of a behind-the-curtain look at our show. We'll talk about upcoming shows. We'll talk about past shows. But we'll also talk about topics that we deem important for the week. Kind of like what we wanted to get to when we started this podcast. I know we book a lot of interviews, and that's great. I love meeting new people and hearing stories. But kind of getting back to our roots, maybe with the Kickout, more of a discussion show, and not taking away from weekly content. We want to put something out there as well. Stay tuned to our socials for that date and time that it will debut. We will let you know, but look for that midweek.
And I want to preface that it is going to be a pre-recorded show. We're not doing this one live.
No.
So we're going to try and be as timely as possible with our discussions, but at the same time, not pull topics that are in your face, right, going on that moment.
Right.
Because we're going to miss a couple shows in between.
For sure. But I think what we talk about is still going to be relevant. I think it's still, big enough in the wrestling world for people to be interested in. So stay tuned for that. Stay tuned to our socials for that. We'll be recording that here soon, and that'll be hitting your airwaves midweek. That'll be the Kickout, the last word in wrestling.
Yes. I'm excited.
I am too.
Until then, we will see you next week at our normal time. We're back on Sunday. We're not going to preview that. You'll find out what we're doing if you stay tuned to our socials. But for my tag team partner, co-champs of the For Frequency Sake Podcast Network, Mr. Never Wrong Nick Bull, I am the Wizard CZ. This has been a magical episode of Card Subject to Change, and we'll see you back here next Sunday.